Breaking news out of Washington, D.C. Today, for the first time in the history of the U.S. Senate, a Republican senator was hypocritical, disingenuous, and just an outright tool. Ha! Had you there, didn't I? And while it would be hard to give the award for being the biggest hypocrite in the Senate, let alone the biggest tool, Senator Cornpone from Louisiana, John Kennedy, is certainly the front runner. Today, Kennedy tried grilling a U.S. Army general, but this general wasn't putting up with it. I'm going to show footage of retired Major General Randy Manner pushing back against the backwoods folksy phony from the bayou. But first, let's get at what's really going on, with General Manner testifying to begin with. Throughout the presidential campaign, former Trump cabinet members and military commanders all pleaded with the American people not to let Trump back into the White House, not even as a tourist, let alone as the president. The reasons were many, but they were not varied. They all said the same thing, that Trump was the stupidest person they had ever met, let alone worked with, that he lacked any kind of judgment whatsoever, compounded by the fact that he was impulsive and lacked any ability for reflection. But the most alarming story of Trump's stupidity was recalled by former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. Watch this.
What was the most disturbing thing that the president said during that meeting on June 1st?
And I thought that we're at a different spot now. He's going to finally give a direct order to deploy paratroopers into the streets of Washington, D.C., and I'm thinking with weapons and bayonets. And this would be horrible.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
But in addition to being stupid, Trump, as a malignant narcissist, is also an authoritarian with the desire to rule as a dictator. Nobody issued a more dire warning of that than General Mark Milley, who told Bob Woodward on the record that no one has ever been as dangerous to this country as Donald Trump. Now I realize he's a total fascist. He's the most dangerous person to this country. General Milley also told Woodward that he feared a possible court-martial in a second Trump term, despite the fact that he's now a civilian. And Mark Esper backs up this fear, revealing that Trump set out to have two highly decorated retired military leaders, Stanley McChrystal and William McRaven, court-martialed for saying things about the former president that he didn't like. And that is precisely where we are with the approaching version of Trump 2.0. Republican senators are already going after generals and former military commanders who called Trump a fascist or insulted him in some way. So, yes, let's be clear. Republican senators are going after private citizens for opinions they expressed during the campaign. Here's Kennedy in action. Watch.
You believe in open borders, don't you?
I believe in the rule of law, sir.
Right. And it makes you angry that President Trump does not believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Senator, I'm not here to discuss immigration policy. I'm here to discuss whether or not we use the military to enforce it.
And it makes you angry that most Americans don't believe in open borders, doesn't it?
Not in the slightest, sir. Again, I am not here to discuss the immigration policy.
Yeah. Duty, honor, respect, you talked about that
Yes,
in
Senator.
your opening statement. On October 14th of this year, you went on CNN. I want to read you what you said, make sure I'm accurate. Here's what you said. President Trump is not like any sane leader. I'm very proud of General Milley for saying that President Trump is a total fascist. To Bob Woodward, if he, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is calling the president a fascist, I'm so proud of him for breaking that barrier. The challenge is because most MAGA Republicans, they don't understand what fascism is. The reality is that they are, in fact, fascists themselves. Did I read that accurate?
Senator, I am happy to discuss my personal perspectives with you separately at any time. That's not the purpose of the hearing today.
Did I read that accurately?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. You think you're smarter than the American people, don't you?
Absolutely not, Senator. I am here to discuss the use of the military as part of this mass deportation.
You think you're more virtuous than the American people, don't you, General?
Senator, I am insulted by your comment.
So the general here slams the senator, but did not silence the Bayou boy. Watch this response.
Now, who's responsible for this unwarranted attack on my person?
Whoops, wrong clip. But you have to admit, the resemblance is striking. Okay, let's hear what Senator Foghorn Leghorn really said.
Duty, honor, and respect. You talked about that in your opening statement, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Moran said, I wrote down her words. She said, by their actions, you know what someone's character is like. You agree with that?
Senator, for 35 years, I served my country with absolute honor and distinction, and I will continue to do so.
So the disingenuousness and hypocrisy are off the charts here. First, don't let the fact that Kennedy cannot pronounce the word fascist correctly fool you. The Oxford University graduate may talk like he just stomped in from the bayou, but he is, by definition, an elitist. And you can bet he definitely did not use that thick accent while he was stomping around Oxford. You can also bet he thinks of himself as smarter than the American people, and certainly smarter than the low IQ voters that he cons into voting for him by laying that accent on thick. But I think General Manner answered the question incorrectly. Just once, I would like to see someone not duck that question about being smarter than the American people. I would have loved for Manner to say, yes, I do. I served as a general in the U.S. Army. Do you know how many people rise to the rank of general in this country? Less than 1%. So by numbers alone, yes, I'm smarter than most of the American people. Why? Is that a problem? But I can understand Manner's hesitancy to respond like that, because make no mistake about it, Kennedy here is trying to kill two birds with one stone, and Manner is one of the birds. Kennedy is trying to discredit anyone who opposes mass deportation as being in favor of open borders, which no one is. And he is setting up General Manner as someone to be court-martialed, if not imprisoned, for accurately criticizing the stupidest person to ever be president. And we're talking George Bush and Ronald Reagan, so the bar is pretty low. Manner wasn't having it, and he should have pushed even harder, because in the end, there's only one way to respond to Senator Foghorn Leghorn.
What you doing there, dog?
I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.